When it comes down to it, Destiny is a game about shooting aliens in the face. And if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. I love shooting me some aliens in the face. While there's been a lot of exotics from Destiny 1 moved into Destiny 2, there's also a lot that have been left behind, probably more than you realize. Today we're going to journey back into the past and go over the Destiny 1 exotic weapons that are not in Destiny 2. As a quick side note, just to let you guys know, this does not count the Age of Triumph exotic raid weapons. Fatebringer and all those guns, yes, have an exotic adept version, but I'm counting them as legendaries, otherwise this video would just be ridiculously long. I also don't really think you guys care to hear about the adept version of Abyss Defiant and Smite of Moraine. We're going in no particular order here, and depending on when you watch this video, it could get slightly outdated, so keep that in mind. If you enjoy this video, a like is super appreciated, and for more content like this, make sure to subscribe. But without wasting any more time, let's hop right into it. There's a lot of weapons on this list, so we're going to be going through all of them relatively quickly. First up is Necrochasm. Necrochasm is an archetype of auto rifle not even in Destiny 2, known as a bullet hose. Bullet hose auto rifles for the most part were known as being pretty bad, with a few exceptions. The addition of submachine guns in Destiny 2 seemed to take their place. Necrochasm was known as being very underwhelming after it first came out, especially being the raid exotic. Over time it was buffed and got to be pretty good, but probably still not as good as people would have liked it to be. Aesthetically though, Necrochasm is really cool. The overall hive design looks awesome, and getting a Cursed Thrall explosion on any enemy with a precision kill is a really creative perk. In stark contrast to Necrochasm was the other raid exotic, the Vex Mythoclast. When the Vault of Glass first came out and people started getting their hands on this thing, it was absolutely broken beyond belief. This thing was straight up able to destroy anything in seconds. It was stupidly OP in the Crucible. While fun, it needed to go through some hard nerfs multiple times, as its range, damage, stability, and magazine size were all just too good, even though at the time it was the hardest exotic in Destiny to get. The Vex is still a very good gun, but it certainly became a shadow of its former self. Coming up next is a weird one, the Kovustav, or Kavastav depending on however you want to say it. The Kovustav was the first weapon a player will obtain in Destiny, regardless of class. The thing was honestly a pretty good meme for a while. It wasn't great, but people used it on occasion in PvP and more than likely stored it in their vault as a keepsake. Bungie eventually brought it back as an exotic in Rise of Iron, allowing people to completely customize it unlike any other weapon in the game. Xalo Supercell is another one still left in the history books of Destiny. A Taken King exotic, Xalo Supercell was good at killing multiple low tier mobs at once, as it was able to chain lightning arc damage across multiple targets at once. It was also a useful weapon when it came to ammo conservation and supercharging, as the perk Bolts from the Blue helped in both of those areas. A personal favorite of mine, Monte Carlo, is up next. When I first got started into Destiny, I wanted Monte Carlo more than any other weapon. I didn't care if it was good or not, I just thought it looked awesome and I needed to get my hands on it. Monte Carlo's perk wasn't anything exciting, it just helped you get more melee charges, and it was pretty underwhelming considering you couldn't stab anyone with a giant knife sticking out of the end of it. Still though, one of the sexiest weapons in this franchise, ever. A Titan exclusive weapon, Fabian Strategy, is next up on our list. I didn't play Titan a lot in Destiny 1, but I remember this gun being okay. Out of the 3 class specific weapons, I think this was probably the weakest, as it really just combined a lot of good legendary perks into an exotic, like crowd control for example. The Last Word recently made its way back into Destiny 2, but what hasn't is its evil twin, the First Curse. Apart from the design, the First Curse is the opposite of the Last Word in every way, emphasizing short, timed, precise shooting. I know some people really liked the First Curse, and I tried to use it at times, but it was never really my favorite. At least in my opinion, missing a shot was too punishing without enough reward for being accurate. On the other end of the spectrum is probably my favorite Destiny weapon of all time, Hawkmoon. Just the name Hawkmoon is awesome. If it were between Hawkmoon, Thorn, and the Last Word, I'd go with Hawkmoon every time in its prime. There are rumors that it will return, but the fact that it isn't in Destiny 2 already is a whole tragedy. Hawkmoon is just such a beautifully crafted weapon, okay? It did get nerfed later in its life, but back in the day, this thing had a chance to proc a one-hit headshot kill if you were lucky enough. Also sorry to Xbox players. Bad Juju is next, the exotic auto-firing pulse rifle. When Bad Juju first came out, it was pretty bad. After some buffs, however, it was able to become a really good exotic. The auto-firing gave it a unique feel, and the exotic bonus allowing it to reload after every kill and charge your super led to some nice alien destruction, especially with Voidwalker Warlocks. The next weapon is kind of in Destiny 2, but not really. Crimson is an exotic hand cannon in Destiny 2 meant to replace this, but it doesn't really do its job. In the pulse rifle form, Red Death is freaking awesome. It was a solid PvP choice for a long time, and some might call it crucial in other PvE activities like Crota's End, for example, allowing you to restore your health after a kill. Another Taken King exotic and another pulse rifle is the long-awaited No Time to Explain. No Time to Explain had many names and concepts before it was released into Destiny, at one point being a scout rifle named the Fate of All Fools. The Fate of All Fools did exist in Destiny 1, but it belonged to only one person. It then became the Jade Rabbit. No Time to Explain has no relation of perks, just the same Stranger's Rifle model. It's pretty confusing. No Time to Explain was a gun I wanted to like more than I did. Its exotic bonus allowing precision hits to go directly back into the magazine was cool, but only good for certain situations like bosses with big crit spots. But it didn't do more damage than Black Spindle, so it didn't really have a place. One of my personal favorites is up next, that being the Warlock exclusive Talaluk. The Talaluk was just your average scout rifle, but when getting your super it became frickin' awesome, increasing handling, rate of fire, and stability. On the surface, one might think that this perk kinda sucks because why would you want to hold on to your super all the time? But if you remember, Destiny 1 had Radiance for Sunsingers, so if you had that equipped, which a lot of people did, you would hold onto that supercharge until you died. Another weapon with a name change is next. Once known as 347 Vested Dynasty, the Boolean Gemini came into Destiny at the time of the Taken King. This weapon allowed you to choose between receiving bonus armor or agility on precision kills. Neither one of these in itself were really that good, but weapons like this I think got Bungie started with what would be their current mod system. And finally, for primaries is an extremely good weapon, only really for one instance, the Touch of Malice. The Touch of Malice is the perfect raid weapon because not only is it constructed out of the parts of the raid bosses themselves, but it is perfectly designed to be great in the Oryx raid encounter. The Touch of Malice in itself isn't a great scout rifle, but once you get on that final bullet, you will do extra damage at the expense of your own health. This was really good in the Oryx encounter, as I said, but not super OP in all areas of Destiny like the Vex was. It was a really good balance and a great reward for someone who had beaten the raid, as it influences more and easier raiding. Moving on to the special weapon category, once again in no particular order, starting with Plan C. Plan C fell into a category that many exotics fell into, where they weren't bad, they just weren't really ever utilized. Plan C charged up extremely quickly if you swapped right to it, which could be good in PvP, but no one was ever going to use it over Thorn at the time. Invective is one of the first exotics introduced into Destiny via questline. It regenerated ammo over time, which was helpful at one point when Bungie nerfed special ammo, but like Plan C, there were other better weapons to use. Felwinter's Lie and Matador 64 were much more popular shotguns to use in the Crucible. Universal Remote, a primary shotgun back when it was rare, is up next. This thing went from sucking to being really good and super annoying, as its exotic perk gives it more range and precision damage when aiming down the sights. Nowadays, anyone can run two shotguns or a shotgun and a sniper at the same time, but back in the day this wasn't the case, making the Universal Remote a good choice for a certain type of player. Evil ones. Next up is the Fourth Horseman, which, at least to me, was just like a meme. It kicked like a mule, and it was just goofy looking and sounding. Its bonuses might as well just be on a legendary. Not to hate, but this thing just kinda sucked. Moving on to sniper rifles is Zen Meteor. Zen Meteor was thought to be really good initially, but the hype for it died down pretty quickly. The idea of one massive damage shot is cool, but when you realize that you have to kill 3 lower tier mobs just to put one high DPS round into a boss, the whole weapon becomes kinda gimmicky and just not really worth it. When Black Spindle exists, nothing else competes. This is pretty much the same for Hereafter, a very cool looking and sounding weapon, but yet very circumstantial and gimmicky, as precision kills will give the flashbang effect to nearby enemies. Next up is Patience in Time. I really like this one. it was good for arc burn, but if I'm being honest, turning invisible is cool, but again, gimmicky, especially if you're a hunter and can do that at like any time anyway. A lot of these exotics are gimmicky on purpose. They aren't meant to be amazing. They're exotic because they do something other weapons just aren't able to do, and I understand that. But if I'm going to talk about them, I'm going to have to be honest and mention how effective they actually are. Really awesome look and sound, really creative, but don't rely on it when you're trying to do a really hard encounter. Just use them to have some fun. Perhaps the most memed gun in all of Destiny is this, the No Land Beyond. If you were using No Land Beyond, you were either a troll or a sniping god. No in between. Some people were actually able to use this thing effectively, so I won't hate on it that much, but it was the only primary sniper at the time. No Land Beyond was unusable in PvE, and in PvP you had to be really good. You know, you're glitching the reload animation and have to deal with the terrible iron sights and that I'm on a boat type of swaying it does. For many, this is notoriously known as the worst weapon in Destiny history. Coming up next is another weapon I'd like to see come back, that being the Icebreaker. Icebreaker was one of the most sought after weapons when Destiny first came out. Regenerating its own ammo was a really good perk, even though it led to a lot of cheesing. Solar Burn Archon Priest Nightfall, you're guilty of it, I'm guilty of it. We all cheese the crap out of that thing, let's just be honest here. It's for that reason why I wonder if Icebreaker really has a place, given how Destiny 2 plays. I'm sure that's something Bungie would think about. I mean, I'd like to see it come back because it was a lot of people's favorites, but if it does, it's gotta have a purpose, and it would probably have to be tweaked somehow. Queenbreaker's Bow and Lord of Wolves are back, but left behind is Drake's Promise. This thing is just terrible. I'm gonna say it, okay? I don't even get what the shock rounds do. And lastly is the Trespasser, another sidearm. This one was pretty good, but again, just more of a fun weapon. Getting a kill allowed your next burst, once reloading, to be a super burst. Moving on to the heavy weapons now. I was debating whether to add these or not, but I figured I would just because. Thunderlord is in Destiny 2, but in Destiny 1, there were Void and Solar Thunderlords named Nova Mortis and Abaddon, and they are not in Destiny 2. Super Good Advice is another heavy machine gun left behind. I remember this one being okay, as missed shots would return to your magazine. Nemesis Star, the gun that I think looks like a seal, is next. I really like this weapon as the video I made on it was one of my most popular videos at the time. The longer you held the trigger, the slower it fired, but the more range and accuracy it got. Wasn't great by any means, but certainly likable. In Destiny 1 there were 3 exotic swords, and I'm going to put them all in the same category. Razelighter, Dark Drinker, and Boltcaster. Razelighter was probably the best as it had the fastest animation. Dark Drinker was really great for any void encounter and could cover more distance than Razelighter could, and Boltcaster was just annoying as frick in the Crucible. All of them were great and useful in their own ways. The red-headed stepchild of those swords was the Young Wolf's Howl. This thing was quickly forgotten about, honestly. It was basically a crappier version of the Razelighter and didn't look as cool, in my opinion. Guys. What else is there to say? Frickin' Gallahorn. And not that Iron Gallahorn, I'm talking about that Year 1 Gallahorn. The best weapon to ever grace this game, to ever bless my controller. Was it slightly broken? Yes. OP? You betcha. Has there ever been anything in Destiny that compares? Not even close. Fatebringer, Black Hammer, Gallahorn, Crota's End. I'll see you there. Bring it back, Bungie. Break your game. Just have Xur randomly sell it. No one will even know. And finally on our list is Dragon's Breath. This thing was utter garbage when it first came out, firing at about 2 miles an hour. It got better over time with buffs, but no one was ever going to use this thing over Gallahorn. And with that, our list is all but wrapped up. Down in the comments, what weapon do you want to see move forward into Destiny 2 the most? For me, it's either Hawkmoon or Gallahorn, but I want to hear your guys' personal picks. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a like. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. 100k is so close, I can almost taste it on my lips. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.